started with a phone call that didn't feel like just a call. My sister's voice, it was different. There was a tremor in it, a hesitation that made my gut tighten. And I had no idea that what she was about to tell me would pull both of us into a storm that could tear apart our family, shatter her marriage, and leave me wondering, did I do the right thing? But before I take you there, you need to understand how we got here. I'm 32 years old, the youngest of 4. I have 2 older brothers, 38 and 40, and my sister, 34. Our dad died 5 years ago in our hometown in suburban Wisconsin. When my brothers were growing up, we didn't have much. Our parents leaned heavily on extended family, conservative, small-town people who believed in tradition above all else. But my dad wasn't like them. He didn't follow the same rigid rules. And by the time me and my sister were born, things had changed. My dad's career had taken off. Money was no longer tight, and we grew up with opportunities my brothers never had. We both earned master's degrees. My brothers had the same resources, but they never went to college. When my dad passed, everything shifted. My mom, steeped in her conservative circle, started pushing my sister toward a man she knew through the church, a farmer's son. For years, it never went anywhere. But after the funeral, when my sister came home to help, the pressure seemed to intensify. My brothers lived nearby, their families deeply woven into that same tight-knit judgmental community. I was far away, working in tech in China at the time, and later settled in San Francisco. I stayed low contact with most of them, except my sister. She and I shared something different. Dad had always been closer to me, and everyone knew it. My siblings resented that. Maybe my mom did too, but it didn't change the fact that my house, the one my mom and oldest brother now live in, belongs to me. Then, in 2019, my sister married him, the man my mom had chosen. I can still remember standing at the wedding, looking around at the farmland and the church crowd thinking, this isn't her. My sister was a city woman, a career woman, someone who thrived in New York. And yet, here she was, stepping into a life I knew she hadn't dreamed for herself. Later, I learned she had given her new husband all her savings. For a while, we barely talked. Then in late 2020, she started calling me out of the blue. Not to ask for anything, just to chat. I welcomed it. Those conversations felt like little lifelines to the sister I remembered. Then, early 2021, my mom called with the kind of announcement most families celebrate. My sister was pregnant. I reached out right away. And that's when her voice cracked. She broke down, telling me the truth. The man she married was abusive. She had no money. Her in-laws offered no support. Our own family, they told her to tough it out. My oldest brother, in a moment that still makes my blood run cold, told her his wife had gone through the same thing and she wasn't special. The first time she'd called me months earlier, it was after her husband had kicked her out of their home for complaining about their finances. Apparently, it wasn't unusual. And here's where I wonder if I crossed a line. Because I yelled at her. I didn't yell out of anger at her, but out of frustration at what she'd been forced to accept. I told her she still had her career, that she could come back to New York, that this pregnancy wasn't a trap. There were other options. She didn't have to stay. The next day, she called again. She didn't say much, just asked for $5,000. I didn't question it. I sent it immediately. And then, silence. Weeks passed, I didn't push. I didn't pry. And then, 1 month later, she called me again. Her voice was different this time. Not shaking, not small. She told me she had moved back to New York. She'd gotten a new job. She had filed for divorce. And the pregnancy was no longer on the table. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. What mattered was that she was out. But when the rest of our family found out, it was like setting off an explosion. My social media lit up with accusations. They called me every name you can imagine, said I had destroyed her marriage, corrupted her, shamed the family. I didn't stay quiet. I gave it back to them. And in the middle of all that chaos, I started thinking about selling the house. My mom and brother, these same people who wanted to disown me, are living under my roof. Maybe it's time to change that. My sister isn't in the clear. She had to move apartments. She has a restraining order against her ex. He's not letting go easily. Things are still messy, still dangerous, but when I talk to her now, I hear something I hadn't heard in years. I hear her breathing easier. I hear her sounding like herself. And that brings me here, to this question I can't shake. I gave her money without asking questions. I told her she didn't have to stay in a marriage that was crushing her. I knew it might mean ending a pregnancy, ending a life she hadn't chosen. And now my family says I'm the villain in this story. So, am I the asshole? Here's what I think. Sometimes, family isn't the people you share blood with. It's the people who show up for you when you're standing at the edge of a cliff, when the ground feels like it's about to give way. Sometimes, helping someone doesn't look pretty. It's not a Hallmark moment. It's messy. It's complicated. It can mean stepping into the role of the bad guy in someone else's narrative. But survival, safety, freedom, those things are worth more than anyone's opinion. My sister made her own choices. I didn't force her hand. All I did was remind her that she had options and back it up when she needed the means to take them. If that makes me the villain in someone's version of the story, I can live with that. And maybe that's the question we all have to wrestle with. If doing the right thing costs you the approval of the people who raised you, would you still do it? So I'll leave it with you. What would you have done? Would you have stepped in, knowing the backlash was coming? Or would you have stayed quiet, let her work it out alone, and risked watching her disappear into a life she didn't choose? Because sometimes, the difference between losing everything and getting a second chance is one person who says, "You don't have to stay."